Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. We are in chapter 23 of the Gospel of Luke, and these are the last hours of Jesus's life. And yet we can still glean a lot of spiritual information and lessons in this chapter of the last hours of his life. And so as we begin looking at it, we see that there's this interesting back and forth that happens here. So we have the religious leaders that are trying to accuse Jesus of going against the empire, of trying to claim his own kingdom, not paying taxes. I mean, they're just trying to find anything they can to get him arrested. And so they take him to Pilate, making these accusations. Pilate talks to him. He's like, I don't see anything wrong here. But he goes, you know what? Herod's in town. So I'll send him over to Herod, So Herod, of course, has been wanting to see Jesus. So he welcomes the opportunity. But at the same time, he mocks him and he laughs at him. But he says, I don't find anything wrong with him. There's nothing that I need to be worried about this man. And so he goes, not my problem, and sends him back to Pilate. But there's this interesting sentence that happens in verse 12. So they've had this kind of back and forth. And it says, that same day that Herod sent Jesus back to Pilate, that same day, Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before this, they had been enemies. So isn't that kind of interesting? That in their agreement that neither one of them needed to fear Jesus at the slightest, brought them together as friends. Now, I mean, it's probably not the most wholesome and righteous relationship, powers that be and everything. But there's this interesting that still through meeting Jesus, people were coming together and creating relationships. And so that's kind of something I've never really picked up on, but today it popped out to me. So then, of course, Pilate, again, he's here with Jesus, and he's like, no, I'm just going to flog him. I'll just kind of rough him up a little bit, and then he's yours. And then the people say, we would prefer to have Barabbas and you crucify him. And Pilate's like, Barabbas is being charged with insurrection and murder. And they're like, yeah, we want him. We would prefer to have him. And Pilate he succumbs to the pressure of what everybody has said to him. He succumbs to the pressure. And so then what happens is now we are on our way, starting verse 26, towards the crucifixion. And Luke makes sure that we remember one little story. I don't know if it's a story so much, but as an event that happens, is that Jesus is unable to carry his own cross. And so Simon is pulled from the crowd and carries Jesus's cross. And it's just this simple act of being able to walk with someone to their death and carry their burdens with it. But it doesn't say that Simon took his place. It doesn't say that Simon fixed the problem. It doesn't say anything else other than that Simon walked with Jesus to his death. And that's so hard these days, I think. I think people want to they want to fix things. They want to make solutions. They don't want to have to experience the hardships. But Simon experienced the hard burden with Jesus, but he didn't fix the problem for him. And that teaches us a lot about how we care for other people and how we walk with them. That it's not about always fixing their problems. It's just being there with them, carrying their burden with them. And then we have this beautiful moment where we see that the women are crying and beating their breasts, and they're so upset. They are so sad of what they're seeing. And Jesus goes to console them. He says, do not cry for me. It's far worse for you all what's going to happen. Like he says that this is, but Jesus can't stop doing ministry. Even on the way to his death, he is continuing to do what he did from the very beginning. Console people and heal people. And we find out that as he's traveling, he's also going with 2 other criminals. And he's experiencing the soldiers who are casting lots for his clothes. So we know all of the scriptures are being fulfilled in all of these acts that are happening. It goes on to say, though, that one criminal starts to kind of make fun of Jesus and kind of says, like, why don't you get us off these crosses if you are the Son of God? And if we remember, it's like we're having a flashback to Jesus's temptation in the wilderness with the devil. So he's being tempted to do something that's not of God. Take us, save yourself, jump off this temple that you have been placed upon, knowing that God will save you. He could have. Jesus really could have, but he's already lived it. He's already been through this, and so he stays up there. But what's interesting is that the other criminal then comes to Jesus's defense. And he's like, dude, we're up here. We deserve it. This guy doesn't deserve this. And he turns to Jesus and he says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And then verse 43, Jesus replied, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. This is one of those moments where I like to let people know the last minute of your life, you can be saved. There are no requirements. There is no requirements other than to believe in Jesus. And anybody who tells you, like, you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you have to do this, you got to do this ritual or that ritual. No, right here we see it. This man has been a criminal his whole life. He is being crucified. And all he says is, Jesus, remember me, because I recognize who you are. And Jesus says, you'll be in paradise with me. Now, I'm pretty sure he's not sitting at the right hand of Jesus, It's not like he's going to automatically get the best place in heaven, but he's going to be there. He will not be separated from the love of God. And I think that's just a really good thing to remember. This man did nothing. He didn't receive a healing. He just said, remember me. And so we have that beautiful moment there. We find then that it's noon now, it's dark, and Jesus again, I kind of missed this part. It was a little bit earlier, but in verse 34, there's this insert where Jesus says, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And so we just remember that as he's coming to his death, he is still praying for these people that are killing him. And so then we have this next little moment where Jesus has taken his last breath. And then in verse 47, we find that the centurion saw what had taken place. And he says, certainly this man was innocent, and he praised God. What's important about this is here on Jesus' death, a centurion, a Gentile soldier, is coming to be aware of who Jesus is. People's lives are being changed up to the last moment of his life. And I think that's so important for all of us to remember. We can be changing lives all the way till our last breath. Our ministry never ends. And so it's just so important. Lives can be changed until our very last breath. Our lives can be changed until our very last breaths. That's all happening in just these few verses. And so we find that this wonderful next little section here, verse 50. Now there was a good and righteous man named Joseph, who, though a member of the council, had not agreed to their plan and action. We cannot ever group people just because of who they belong, like their title or where they're. There are good and righteous people in every group right now. If we have to think about it, in our culture right now that is so polarized with politics, with race issues, with religious differences, there are good and righteous people in every single one of these groups. And if we see the negativity coming out of the group and we say that group crucified Jesus, but it doesn't mean every person in that group did. And we see that. We can't make these overriding judgments. There is an awareness that these groups do have power and can do that, but there are still insiders who don't agree with it. And these are the people who do make slow changes, slow differences. It just takes a lot longer because they're not going to be mean about it. And so what this man does, Joseph does, is that he offers up a grave, a place to put Jesus, and he takes him and finds a place so that he can be taken care of before Sabbath hits. And that's what's really interesting about how this chapter ends. Like, after everything has happened, it could say he's buried. It is finished. Do you know what it says? It says, on the Sabbath, they rested according to the commandment. What do you do in all of this? You return to the rhythms that God has given us. When you don't know what else to do, you return to the rhythm of God, and you return to the place where you connect with God. And that's our Sabbath. Sabbath is not just Sunday morning. For some people it is, but it's that moment that you return to your connection with God as commanded. You have to take time out to reflect, to repent, and to renew yourself in the love of God. And so in this darkest moment of their lives, we are not left with, oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do? No, we return to Sabbath. We connect. And so no matter what we are experiencing in life, no matter what we're going through, we do have the answer of how to overcome these times. And that's our encouragement. That's our joy that we have, is we return to Sabbath. We return to our God, and we leave it in God's hands. And then there's work to be done. But that's chapter 24, which we will get into tomorrow. And that means we have completed the Gospel of Luke tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you. Have a beautiful day. And thank you for joining me, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion.